What we have for you today is a recap of the Super Bowl. I take things from the timeline, I take the most pertinent information, condense it so you don't have to go scrolling endlessly on a desk scroll on your own timeline. I do the work for you. I bring you all the pertinent information. We put the tweets up, we put the data up, we put the tea up, and then we discuss. So feel free to tap in on the chat. This is a safe space for all the Chiefs fans. We are not going to come here to tap dance on the grave of the Chiefs, but if you do want to get that off, feel free. But I am here to kind of discuss just what the hell we saw yesterday. Yesterday was a throwback to my childhood. Yesterday was a old school beatdown in the Super Bowl. That used to be the norm. That used to be a common occurrence in the Super Bowl where one team was vastly better than the other team, and it would be 45-10, 42-8, 35-12. It would be a demonstrative destruction of one team over the other. And that's what we got yesterday. It was restoring the feeling of the late 80s into the 90s. It was a nostalgia. And it made us focus even more on what the hell is Kung Fu Kenny going to do at halftime. We will get there, trust and believe. But when it comes to this game, the Philadelphia Eagles have had one of the most talented rosters in a very long time over the last 3 to 4 years for sure. Getting A.J. Brown was the turning point for making this team to be one of those upper echelon teams. The fact that the Tennessee Titans gift wrapped and handed the Philadelphia Eagles A.J. Brown is still a travesty of justice and should be investigated. And there's no secret as to why that regime that was in charge of making that deal from the Tennessee POV are all unemployed right now. However, be that as it may, the Eagles swooped in and got the deal done, and they gift wrapped a premier top tier in his prime number one wide receiver to Jalen Hurts. And Jalen Hurts has kind of become an enigma of sorts. He's not on the polarizing scale of like Lamar Jackson or even Josh Allen to a certain degree, but he ain't that far, or even Tua Tagovailoa, but he's certainly in that top five of like most polarizing QBs because we have seen numerous times where Jalen Hurts doesn't look to be elite. But yet, in certain games, in certain moments, in this postseason, probably personifies it even more than even the game he had against Mahomes 2 years ago in this same very Super Bowl, where he does look elite. And he looks like a QB that could be top five. But then you have to remember all the talent that he has around him. You have to remember that he has a elite top tier offensive line to go along with not one, but two very good wide receivers, with A.J. Brown being a top five receiver in this league. And then, oh, by the way, they get Saquon Barkley gift wrapped to them from their in-division rival, the New York Giants. So with all those weapons, shouldn't this be the outcome? With all those weapons, shouldn't this be the result of the Philadelphia Eagles hosting up another Lombardi? Even if Jalen Hurts isn't elite, even if he's just very good, shouldn't this still be the result? When you're looking at the fact that you have a top five running back, and that top five is extremely conservative. I could go top three and top two, but let's just be safe and say top five running back, top five number one wide receiver, and an upper tier number two receiver that could be a number one on other teams. A very good tight end, one of the best, if not the best, offensive lines in the sport. Shouldn't yesterday be a more common occurrence? Shouldn't this be a thing where it's Jalen Hurts versus Mahomes all the time? Because Mahomes is going to find a way to get out the AFC. But shouldn't Jalen Hurts in that juggernaut of talent be able to get out the NFC more times than not? That's going to be the thing. There's going to be a rush to judgment of, well, Jalen Hurts got the Super Bowl MVP. He's elite now. Well, let's slow down. It wasn't that long ago, about a month and change ago, maybe 2 months, where A.J. Brown, that top 5 wide receiver in the league, was questioning Jalen Hurts' ability and his role in the offense. It wasn't that long ago. I know we want to move past it now because they got the ship and all is well. Everything looks better and feels better when you're winning. The air smells better. The water tastes better. You sleep better. You love better. You think better when you're winning. A.J. Brown was out here reading books on the sidelines instead of getting appropriate amount of targets. But now, all that goes by the wayside because they're both Super Bowl champions. Jalen Hurts, for the second time in the Super Bowl, has outplayed Patrick Mahomes. And while we could certainly get into, well, that means now that Jalen Hurts is better than Patrick Mahomes, I think that would be one of the most asinine takes you could ever make. But we can certainly start to have the discussion of, well, Jalen, how good is he? He's gotten the bag already. He's done a lot of things off the field that curries a lot of favor, especially from the female audience, and that's a good thing. But how good is Jalen Hurts actually? And I know Eagles fans want to just wave the pom-poms and just be happy about the victory, and this is not the content for them today. Because as someone that is not a fan, I tap into, well, what does all of this mean? You won the Super Bowl. It was an amazing show of physical dominance at the line of scrimmage. At the point of attack on both sides of the ball, your offensive line and your defensive line, they dominated. And they dominated rather easily. Now, we also have to throw a lot of caveats in there when it comes to the Chiefs. The Chiefs were playing with up to 3 backups when you look at their starting offensive line week 1 compared to what they rolled out of there with last night. The Chiefs rolled out there with 3 different offensive linemen. Okay, so they had at least minimum 3 backups out there on the field in the Super Bowl of all places. So they were at a disadvantage off rip. But the thing about it is we have seen that plenty of times where a team appears to have an advantage and they don't take advantage of it. And the Eagles were able to take advantage of the fact that the Chiefs were decimated across the offensive line. Not as bad as it was a few years ago when the Chiefs were ran through by the Bucs and Brady got that last chip off. It wasn't that bad when Mahomes was throwing parallel to his body, but it was damn near close to that. So we have the numbers here to back up what we were looking at. And the fact that they were able to get home, the Eagles' defensive line were able to get home with just 4. Let's go ahead and get into it. 4-letter network research, the Eagles blitz Patrick Mahomes on 0 of his 42 dropbacks. Mahomes is the 6th quarterback in Super Bowl history to not be blitzed a single time. Oh, by the way, all 6 of those quarterbacks lost. So then that comes to bring up, well, who were the other 5 quarterbacks that lost? And we do have that T. Let's see if we can find it real quick. There it is. Okay. Now, AI generated this answer, so be that as we'll take that with a grain of salt, right? But the 6 quarterbacks who lost in the Super Bowl without facing a single blitz are Kurt Warner in 01, Rich Gannon in 02, McNabb in 04, Peyton Manning in 09, Cam Newton in 2015. A lot of these are against the Patriots, by the way. Cam Newton in 2015, and then Mahomes in 2020. Now, that year is not accurate, so that has to get changed unless that's now the second time that that's happened to him. It's AI, so we'll let that go for right now. But in terms of the 5 other QBs, we're talking Cam Newton. That was against the Patriots. Peyton Manning, Super Bowl 2009. So that was Denver. That was against Seattle. So that was cover 3. McNabb, that was against the Patriots. Rich Gannon, that was against the Bucs. Bucks played cover 2, okay? And then Kurt Warner in 0-1. I think this was also the Patriots. So not facing a single blitz, all zone all the time. That's how you stop Patrick Mahomes. I thought that was supposed to be how you stop Joe Burrow, how you stop Lamar Jackson. Is that now going to be the book? We know that this league is a copycat league. Is this now going to be the book on Patrick Mahomes? Don't blitz. Now, you also have to acknowledge, again, like I said earlier, the Chiefs were without 3 starters on that offensive line, and they had to move. I think the right tackle had to move the guard. It was a mishmash unit. Be that as it may, is the book now to stop Mahomes? Are these now the Mahomes rules? You know, we like to liken Mahomes to Jordan, and Jordan had the Jordan rules where the Pistons found a way to always find a way to stop Jordan, which is basically by fucking them up. But now, do we now have the Mahomes rules where, hey, just play too high. Just play too high. Just, don't blitz. As long as you got a top tier D line that can get home with 4, don't blitz. Because again, this is why the impact of Tyreek Hill wanting his money and the Chiefs deciding to not give him that money. This is where that stuff comes back to roost, because they've been able to get off Super Bowls by smoke and mirrors the last 2 years. Now this is the first Super Bowl where you're like, yeah, man, they don't got no weapons. Travis Kelce was thought to be still, to this day, a weapon. When the Chiefs admitted that they were using him as a decoy, basically allowing him to load manage last year until they needed him in the Super Bowl, and then he was able to put up big numbers. He couldn't turn the switch on yesterday. That team is going to look drastically different next year. Talk about the Chiefs. That team should, let me correct myself, that team should look drastically different next year if they're serious about winning. This is going to become a real pivotal moment for the Chiefs. Are you happy with the chips you got? Are you happy? Are you content? Because if you're not content, if you're not happy, then changes need to be made. But if you are happy, if you are content, if you're cool with just riding this thing out and hoping and wishing upon a star that Mahomes can drag you to another one, then okay. This very much will be reminiscent of the Dubs. We talked about the Dubs on the last live stream in terms of Steph Curry needed to make a choice. Do we tear it all down and rebuild? Or do we try to run this thing back with the same squad? And Steph Curry was too loyal to the habitual nut hitter and Draymond Green, and that has allowed them to take a step back. And now they're going to be struggling to make the play-in until they make the change of getting Draymond Green up out of there. The Chiefs are going to be in that same mode. How long are you going to let this Travis Kelce thing play out? Second postseason in a row where he was more of a decoy, load managing, and then you hoped he could turn the switch on when you needed it. And now, unlike last year, he was not able to turn that switch on this year. Was this just an anomaly, or is this more of a sign of this is who he is from right now, and he's only going to get worse from here on out? That's going to have to be a real conversation held in the Chiefs front office when they look into that draft and they look at the cap space that's there to try to figure out, are we going to draft his replacement? Because his replacement is not on that roster. They tried the in-season thing to get the D-Hop thing off. It was cool, but it didn't really work because D-Hop is not who he once was. They got Hollywood Brown back. But again, that's Hollywood Brown. Juju Smith-Schuster. These are not top-tier weapons. And yes, Mahomes can win with subpar talent. We've seen it the last 2 years. You can't expect that to be the norm. Mahomes is thought to be the exception to the rule. He can win even with subpar talent. Guess what? When you face a team that has more talent than you, That's where that exception gets thrown out the window. The Philadelphia Eagles, from top to bottom, were and will continue to be, going forward, a more talented team than the Kansas City Chiefs. If that's going to be the case, what is the move for the Chiefs? Because the Eagles have figured it out. Get a good enough QB. Don't need an elite one. Get a good enough QB and surround him with top 5 talent everywhere. Saquon, A.J. Brown, Devonta Smith, Dallas Goedert, that O-line, top 5s everywhere. And then Jalen, just be top 10. We don't need you to be top 3. We don't need you to be in the conversation with Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson and Mahomes. We don't need you to be in that conversation. Just be top 10. And the talent everywhere else will figure itself out. This game is not that difficult. What you saw last night was the easiest thing to describe as they won in the trenches. That's the oldest school. John Madden would have loved that game last night. Vince Lombardi would have loved that game last night. Any old head that's 60, 70 and up would have loved that football game last night because it was an old school game in the sense of offensive line trucking another team, defensive line getting after the quarterback. It's simple football. We don't even have to blitz. I think the blueprint will be attempted to be copied next year. Teams, if they feel confident in their defensive line, are now going to not blitz Patrick Mahomes and dare a Juju, a Hollywood, a old Travis Kelce to try to beat them. Now, of course, they'll get Rashee Rice back, you would assume, if he's not locked up. But Rashee Rice ain't going to do it. Rashee Rice, Xavier Worthy, those are good second receivers. Those are not number ones. If Travis Kelce is old, if Travis Kelce is done being who we thought he was, what do you do on the outside to replace what Kelce was able to do in the seam and inside? Andy Reid, you got some cooking up to do. Mahomes has saved you the last 2 years, but he just willed that team. Him and Chris Jones. Chris Jones didn't have it yesterday. Man, so much in this game. So much in this game. The Eagles did not blitz once across 42 dropbacks. Relying on the front four, the Eagles generated 16 pressures and sacked Mahomes 6 times, the most in a game in his career. The Eagles played zone coverage on all but 2 dropbacks, specifically cover 4, the 3rd highest rate by a defense in a game since 2018. So again, they just dared them to beat them. I dare you to try to beat me with Juju. I dare you to try to beat me with Hollywood. Kelce's tricky, shifty moves off the line ain't going to work if we just sitting back in cover 4. There's no zone beaters for that. The fact that Kelce did not get a touch until the second half, the fact that Xavier Worthy damn near went the whole first half without a touch, that zone and the daring you to beat me this way ate the Chiefs up. And again, they're getting home with 4. Getting home with 4 disrupts the math so much. I don't think people understand. Being able that you have 5 offensive linemen that are dedicated to protecting the quarterback. If your 4 on the defense can beat those 5, that disrupts the math. We talk about You know, the Warriors, our threes are more than your twos. The Eagles' four was more than the Chiefs' five. It disrupted the math. So now you got to keep an extra guy in. So now my four is still beating your six. If you keep in a tight end or a back to chip, now it's 4-on-6, and I'm still winning. That's one less option you have as an outlet, because I still got my 7 behind me. So that's the math. That's how you disrupt the math. You can have a back stay in the chip or a tight end stay in to block. Make it that 6. Cool. That means you only have 5 going out in formation against my 7. Whereas before, if you can protect that 4, now I got 5 people going out into a formation against 7. The numbers are better. The numbers are better. If I don't have to chip, if I don't have to keep a back in, and I can send out 5. Now I got to keep a back in. Now I'm down to 4. 4 people trying to find an empty spot in a 7-person zone. That's extremely difficult. Those windows are going to be extremely short. The Eagles disrupted the math. Football is not a hard sport to navigate. I know with all the advanced metrics and all of this data that we're being inundated with in these broadcasts, spread offenses, all types of alterations where, well, it doesn't have to be like black and white footage where everything was the wishbone, triple option. No, it doesn't have to be that. However, if my 5 guys up front on offense at the point of attack and they can move your 4 or your 3, that's advantage me. And then on the flip side, if I have my 4 against your 5 and they can beat up your 5, that is advantage me. The physicality in this sport is not that difficult to navigate. It's all math. The Eagles disrupted the math. The 4-man line was able to get home against the Chiefs 5, against the Chiefs 6, damn near a couple of times against the Chiefs 7. And that allowed your back 7 to just chill in their zone and just play the space and follow whoever comes into your space and release them to the next one, because they didn't have to blitz. This is not a difficult game to figure out. Last night was an old school beatdown. Physical at the point of attack. Dominance on both sides of the line. Saquon didn't even cook up like that. But I mean, if you listen to the stream and you listen to the parlays we did, or some of the options you had at parlays, a lot of those hit. So if y'all hit those or whatever, just send a portion, a little 10%. I ain't asking for too much. A little 10% to your boy. The link is down there in the description to support the channel. Because if you follow some of those bets, you made money last night. Just saying. Anyway, we'll hit the chat. Patrick in the house. What's good, Patrick? That's why Jalen Carter was drafted. The Eagles know from the last time. Bruh, what Jalen Carter has been able to do, he is a game wrecker. He is a game changer. And the fact that I always focus on the Bears sitting at 9 and having a chance to draft Jalen Carter, knowing that they had no pass rush what to speak of. They had no pass rush to speak of. And the fact that they just traded back one spot with the Eagles, and all they got for giving up the rights to draft Jalen Carter was just a measly 4th rounder. Poverty franchise. Insane, bro. And that's where, when you see how a team is built, and I have some articles here that break down how the Eagles were built and how they do a lot of stuff with the cap, and They put a lot of dead money to help stretch out the cap, and that's how they're able to get all this talent underneath their roof. But it starts with the draft. If you don't hit on the draft, your salary cap, I don't care what you do, you're going to be in salary cap hell because you're going to have to continuously keep signing players. The Eagles don't have to do that. When they sign a player, it's a big time player. They could go out and get a Saquon because they've hit on a million draft picks that are all on rookie scale and they're starting and they're making. You can do all of that because you have a Jordan Davis, you have a Jalen Carter, you have a DeJean. All these dudes that you've been drafting from Georgia and from elsewhere over the last 3 to 4 years, they have damn near hit on about 70 to 80% of these picks. That is what allows for cap flexibility. That is what allows for roster flexibility because you know if a free agent leaves, me and my scouting team, we gonna get either the same production or maybe even better production in the next draft. And if we don't, we got the bread because we've hit on so many other picks that we could run and go give Saquon the bread he's looking for, even though in the grand scheme of things, he's only the 7th highest paid player on that offense. But for Saquon, he's getting top of the market money. And therein lies the point. Saquon, who is top 5, and again, that's conservative, top 5 at what he does. The Eagles gave him market value for what he does and what he produces, and he's only the 7th highest paid player on offense. I hope y'all are following. I hope y'all are following because it's right there. The information is right there. Eagles generate a pressure rate of 38.1% in Super Bowl blowout without blitzing once. They got home with 4. That's the theme. They disrupted the math. My 4 beats your 5. And then on the flip side on offense, my 5 is beating the hell out of your 4. To where Jalen Hurts can be Super Bowl MVP, where we can argue he played better in the Super Bowl loss a couple of years ago against Mahomes. But because Saquon didn't have that typical Saquon breakout huge game, you can't just hand it to Saquon. So you give it to the QB. QB, the winning team in the Super Bowl, more times than not, is getting that Super Bowl MVP unless someone has a out-of-this-world performance. Everyone's taking his time. Dan Orlovsky on the 4-letter network, he's copping pleas and apologizing to Jalen Hurts. Why are you apologizing? Stand on it. There was fair criticism of Jalen Hurts heading into this game. Now, he played out of his mind against the Commandos a couple weeks ago, and he played out of his mind at times yesterday. That doesn't mean that the criticisms from mid-season, when it was clear that something wasn't right, that doesn't mean all of a sudden that stuff was wrong. It wasn't wrong. It happened. We seen it. It was a real thing. It happened. That doesn't mean because they figured things out and gone on to win the championship that all of a sudden that shit from October and November just evaporates. Now, in the fans' mind, sure, because, hey, shit, we won the chip. But if you're tracking how this thing was actually won, you can't ignore that. Jalen Hurts is a very good quarterback. He is a top 10 quarterback. He is not elite. Now, he plays up. He has played up to his competition. He has looked Mahomes in the eye and has beat him statistically and just in game flavor twice. So he has looked Jordan in the eye and hasn't blinked twice. That's impressive. He also has one of the best offensive lines in the sport. This time he has Saquon Barkley, and he's got A.J. Brown and Devonta Smith. It helps to look Jordan in the eye when you got top 5s everywhere. Let's see what else we got. And then again, your man's Nick Wright, blue check boy. Also a Kansas City Chiefs fan. This is how you know these folks don't know ball. But these dudes are paid a lot of money to discuss and act like they're experts. This is another fan that's on TV. This man is an admitted, open Kansas City Chiefs fan. Somehow, some way, he is now being trusted on a national level to be able to talk about all sports when all he does is hype up LeBron is better than Jordan and Patrick Mahomes is the greatest thing ever. Those are his two polarizing takes. Yet this man is able to be on this platform and say that the Eagles were going to finish third in their division heading into this season. Make it make sense. Mina Kimes always on the ball when it comes to it. You know, Jalen Hurts, he's got a 119 passer rating, 119 passer rating, 220 passing yards and 70 rushing. What are you smoking, Mina? Because Mina was saying, look, I'll put up the tweet. I really don't know which Eagles defensive player wins MVP. Maybe Josh Sweat. This is reminiscent of Super Bowl 48 where the entire defense dominated and Malcolm Smith won. So this was a real conversation that was being had in group chats and things like that last night for me. He's like, well, who's MVP? And I'm like, well, it's the QB. It's going to go to the QB, but the story is this defense. Because the defense stopped Jordan, and they stopped Jordan by getting home with 4 and not having to blitz once. That's the story. Jalen Hurts played well. This wasn't a, top tier one-of-one performance. It was a very good performance, one that is deserving of a Super Bowl MVP. But when you look at what that defense as a unit did, that's the story. But in this sport, QB's over everything. The QB is going to get the award. So, Mina chimes back. He's been excellent. The story of the game is the defensive line absolutely destroying KC in front of sticky coverage. At the moment, the Eagles' 4-man rush has a 52% pressure rate versus the Chiefs' 14. So not only are we talking about the Eagles' 4-man rush is getting home at a 52% pressure rate at one point. On the flip side, the Eagles' offensive line was dominating because the Chiefs could only counter with a 14% pressure rate. I know people aren't big on the analytics and the data, but sometimes you got to sift through and find numbers that actually tell you how the game is being played. Pressure rate is one of those. Mahomes was getting pressured up the middle. Even when they tried to bootleg, the ends were containing. And then because they're playing zone, the second level, the back 7 could swarm and get to wherever Mahomes was trying to get to right away. And that's how the picks happened. Let me see. Do I have the dots? I know I got the dots here. The dots are somewhere. Here we go. Here goes the dots. The Cooper DeJean dots. Okay? So let's go ahead and back this up. All right. So again, they're only coming across with the 4, right? You see the 4 across. Drop back, playing zone. Now Mahomes starts to roll out immediately because he's getting pressure. They do a nice little stunt. They do a stunt here on the edge. Now the stunt is causing problems. These 3 Chiefs are being beat by these 2. Again, disrupting the math. These 3 Chiefs are getting beat by these 2 Eagles. And then on the other side, you now have a center that goes to double on these 2 because these 2, the guard and the tackle, are getting beat. Center has to slide, which now leaves 2 Eagles on 2 linemen, and now the tight end has to stay in. So again, it's 4 against 6. Tight end now has to stay in because the Eagles are getting home with 4 routinely. Okay? So now Mahomes has to get the hell out of Dodge because, again, they're beating him up. And now P. Ryan is even still kind of staying in himself. So he can't even leak out into his actual route in time to make this be a thing. He can't be an outlet. You could argue Mahomes should just get rid of it at this point, but that's asking a lot for a man that's been under siege early in this game. Mahomes is rolling out. He does not see DeJean because DeJean doubled back. He thinks DeJean's going to follow and try to cut off the underneath, maybe a comeback route. Since, Mahomes is rolling out, this might be a comeback route. He might flatten this out, whatever the case, make himself available. But he doesn't do that. Because Mahomes is very, very adept at throwing behind coverage. It's one of the things he's top tier at. He make you think he's going the conventional route, and then he does something unorthodox, and he's able to slice you and dice you with the unorthodox. He is thinking that way here on this play. I'm going to come across and catch, who's this D-Hop, right? I think this is Nuck. He's trying to catch Nuck, but DeJean sees it, and he's going to break his own zone off and double back, and now he's going to follow Mahomes. Because, again, everyone watches film. Easy. When you're looking at it through the dots, it's easy. Now, it's not easy in real life, but when you're looking at it in this way, it's easy. And then he houses it, outruns everybody, takes it to the crib. But the key is that you had 5 and end up being a 6th person staying in the block, and these 4 were able to get by these 6. That fucks up the math if you're the Chiefs. Because now I only have 1, 2, 3, 4 people in a route against 7. That's not odds you're going to win more times than not. 4 against 7 is not a favorable ratio. The 4 beat up on the 6. Now all 4 are on one side of the field. That's not helpful either. And you're starting off on the short side of the field. You're rolling to the short side of the field. Everyone's in this route. There's no real space to throw this ball. These 2 are taking care of the underneath. They're taking care of P-Ryan, taking care of that. You have 2 deep safeties already. They're back there. They're not getting beat over the top. Now you have the intermediate right here. And this is where DeJean falls back to now cut off the new underneath. Because this is the first underneath with the linebackers. But now, because Mahomes has rolled out, it allows the route to develop. Players get deeper into formation. Now here's a new level that needs to be covered underneath, and DeJean is going to do that. And DeJean is able to camouflage himself, roll off of coverage here, and able to swoop in and get the pick, and then take it to the crib. That's top tier, bro. That's top tier. That's what happens when you're able to get home with 4. Your 4 is beating 6. This is math we're talking. Your 4 is beating 6. Entering the Super Bowl, the Eagles ran 2 high coverage, which is what we just saw with the dots. 2 high coverage. The Eagles ran 2 high coverage 46% of the time, 13th most in the league, right? So 16 is 32 teams, right? So about average, almost a little slightly above average. In the Super Bowl, they ran 2 high 76% of the time. Again, I asked this early in the stream. Is this now going to be the blueprint on the Chiefs? Just play 2 high. They do that. They did that when they first lost Tyreek Hill. They played too deep. 2 high, 2 deep, same difference. That's also been the book on Joe Burrow. That's also been the book on Lamar Jackson. Is it really just that simple? It's not that simple because you have to be able to get home with 4 to get that off. Because if you're playing too high and you're still blitzing, you're going to get shredded underneath. You won't get bit deep. You will not get beat deep. But you will get beat middle to underneath. But to be able to get home with 4, so I don't have to blitz, so I'm not sacrificing the underneath or the middle, and I'm still protected deep, Where are you going? Where was Patrick Mahomes supposed to throw the football yesterday? Especially after it was proven very early they were not going to be able to run the ball against the Eagles. Again, that comes to the front four. Your front four was so stout. Not only did they get home with an insane pressure rate, they were also able to stop the run. It made you basically give up the run. They gave up the run. Mahomes passed the ball 42 times. Now, of course, the score played a part into that. But they gave up running the ball. You talked about, and we'll switch to this look for that. Eagles top 5 highest paid players. Okay. This is based on their average annual value. You see, Jalen Hurts, clear cut number one, the highest paid player on the team, 51 M's. AJ Brown, 32 M's. Devonta Smith, 25 M's. This is just the offense. This is the offense. This ain't talking about the defense yet. This doesn't say Eagles top 5 highest offensive paid players. This says top 5 highest paid hard stop players. The top 5 dudes on the team that are getting paid the most are all offensive players. Saquon Barkley's now on this graphic with his little $12 million a year. And I use little as in jest, but that's what we're talking about. Devonta Smith makes double what Saquon Barkley makes. Is that justifiable? Hell no, but this is the NFL with a piss poor players union. AJ Brown down there is making 3 times what Saquon Barkley is making. Is AJ Brown 3 times better at what he does than what Saquon is at what he does? No, but this is the National Checkdown League. And again, there's a poverty players union in the NFLPA that's about to bend over and say to 18 games and soon come 20 games. The Eagles have built this thing correctly via the draft. The Eagles have built this thing, and this is in spite of having Sirianni, who I don't think any of us are even still. Okay, I'll rephrase it this way. Is there anyone that's watching this live stream or even on the replay later that thinks Nick Sirianni has figured it out as a coach? Now, he's not necessarily an offensive guru or a defensive guru. He's kind of just like the CEO type of coach where I let my guys handle what they're hired to do, and I just kind of oversee. He's not a Shanahan out in the Bay where he's got his hands in everything, especially the offense. McVay, the same thing. Like, Sirianni's not a genius in that aspect. But as a CEO, in terms of managing all embodiments, managing special teams, managing offense, managing defense, and letting his coordinators do what they do, but just making sure that they're following the vision, following the blueprint, has Sirianni figured it out? Because I can certainly remember a couple of no more than 8 to 10 weeks ago, people were calling for his head. People did not think that man was competent. People were running back the clips of his opening introductory press conference. That was a real thing that was happening. But now that the talent overwhelmed everybody else, and we got to look at Detroit in a way because Detroit has similar weapons. That should have been the NFC Championship game. Salute to the Commandos. They went in there and took care of business on the road and beat Detroit because the Lions were always lying. But on paper, it should have been Lions, Eagles. The 2 teams with the most talent on both sides of the ball, they should have been going at it in the championship game for the right to get to the Super Bowl. I feel as though what the Eagles have been able to do historically, like we'll do a quick thing on the draft when it comes to the Eagles, right? Draft by franchise Eagles. Okay, so look at these draft classes, bro. Mitchell, DeJean. That's how you start off, right? So these are guys that first four picks all played in almost every game. Even Trotter Jr. played in every single game. Even Johnny Wilson, who kind of didn't really give you too much of anything, at least he got some game action, right? 16 games. So you could say damn near the entire draft class was productive. When we're looking at the year before, Jalen Carter has become one of them ones. Already, in just 2 seasons, he's become a top tier at his position. Nolan Smith has played well. If you want to get into Sidney Brown, we could do that another day. But in terms of, again, did you hit on the picks you had to hit? Yes. In this past draft, they had to hit on Mitchell and DeJean, and they did. In 2023, they had to hit on Jalen Carter, and they did. And they hit on Nolan Smith. The year before, Jordan Davis. I think that's a hit. I can understand those who think that he hasn't really lived up to it, but in terms of what he's supposed to be, I think he fits in well. Even Nakobe Dean, that you could argue is a hit. He's battled some things, but Cam Jurgens is definitely a hit. Year before that, Devonta Smith, Kenneth Gainwell, Dickerson on that O-line. These are who we talking about. Where's the misses here? Where's the first, second, or third round pick that was a miss? We haven't come across one yet, and we're in 2021. And even though Jalen Reagor didn't work out, you hit on Jalen Hurts. So the picks you had to hit, you hit. This is how you're able to be flexible when you have to let guys go, when you have to move on from guys, when you have to overpay your guys. I would much rather overpay my draft picks than have to go out and overpay for a free agent just because my drafting didn't pan out the way I thought it was. It's much easier to reward Jalen Hurts because you drafted him and you gave him a chance and then you got him the appropriate help to allow him to grow into the role and become better, as opposed to routinely being in the top 10, tricking off picks, and then having to cover up those bullet-sized wounds with a Band-Aid by signing a free agent. Are we ready for the halftime yet? So we talked about the Chiefs, right? Kelsey has a 19.8, basically $20 million cap hit next season. The Chiefs could save $17 million if they cut him. What's the likelihood of the Chiefs cutting Travis Kelsey? That's where Mahomes has to go into them offices, talk to the owner who said publicly, we'll never be able to pay you your market value. We'll never be able to, give you your proper worth. You will always be underpaid. Mahomes has to go to that owner and say, yo, I know y'all love having Taylor Swift in the press box and with my wife hanging out and all that type of shit, but it's time. I know y'all are getting the extra bread from the Swifties, buying up the Kelsey jerseys and all that, but it's time. Are you ready to do the uncomfortable thing and move on from Travis Kelsey? Let's take a look at this article. Now they say may need to take a pay cut. I don't think he's taking, man. I mean, you could argue that he can take a pay cut. He can afford to take a pay cut because the pod, he's getting money off the pod with his brother. But I don't know. I don't know if I'm doing that. In that league where you get beat up for a living, I don't know if I'm taking a pay cut if I'm of his stature. Kelsey 35 said last week he wants to keep playing in the NFL beyond this season, but NFL Network reported Saturday that he was considering retirement, especially if Kansas City won Sunday. Well, there goes that. There goes that. You took a beat down in front of the world. In front of the world. The whole world was watching because of halftime, but the whole world saw you get destroyed. Super Bowl Kelsey caught 4 passes for 39 yards. In the AFC Championship game against the Bills, he had 2 receptions for 19 yards. In the divisional round against the Texans, Kelsey shined, 7 catches for 117 yards and 1 touchdown. So you beat up on the Texans, but you had nothing for the Bills or the Eagles after that. But the Swifties, though. During the regular season, Kelsey racked up 823 yards, 5th among tight ends, but only 3 touchdowns, with ranks 18th for his position. Yeah, Kelsey's on a decline. It's time. It's time for the uncomfortable conversation. But a la Steph Curry, is Mahomes ready to have that conversation? Right now, the Chiefs are projected to have just $16 million in salary cap space for 2025, which ranks 22nd in the NFL. Mahomes has reworked his deal multiple times to help the team move money around, basically deferring money. That's what he's been doing. A la Nasty Man in Cleveland, although Nasty Man's money is guaranteed. But Mahomes has been moving around and deferring some of the bread, or front loading, or converting that money into signing bonus to help the team be able to get some cap relief to enhance the roster. But how have they enhanced this roster? Outside of Chris Jones and fortifying the line a few years ago after that Tampa Bay Super Bowl, what have the Chiefs spent big money on that directly helps Patrick Mahomes? I can't recall it, to be quite honest. Let me know in the chat or in the comment section if you're watching on the replay. I appreciate those pulling up. If you could hit that like button, let the YouTube people know that you're digging this content. Breaking down the Super Bowl, breaking this down bit by bit, and we got the halftime coming up to break down as well. Mahomes' average salary of $45 million ranks 12th among quarterbacks. I have videos on this channel talking about the Patrick Mahomes contract and how horrible it is, even though the big number of $500 million means a lot and it sounds crazy and it sounds ridiculous. But there's a lot of funny money in that contract. That contract is pushed out, extended out for almost a decade. Like, there's a lot of stuff in that contract. If you want to tap in, go ahead and look for that here on this channel. The Chiefs owe Kelsey an $11.5 million roster bonus on March 14th. So any decision about his future will likely be made by that date. The league's new year begins March 12th. If I'm the Chiefs, I don't bring back Travis Kelsey. And if we want to get into what we're looking at the draft, priority 1 should be getting weapons around Patrick Mahomes, right? That should be what it's all about. If that's going to be the case, mock draft, let's see who they have the Chiefs taking. Offensive line. I mean, after yesterday, I think that's very clear that they should be focusing on offensive line, right? However, if you're drafting, and let's see, do they have multiple picks this year? Nope. They have their own first, their own second. They have the Titans third. So they essentially have 2 picks damn near back to back. End of second, top of the third. So they have 2 thirds, including the Titans third, 1 fourth. They have no 5th, no 6th, and the compensatory 7th round pick. So if that's the case, so in that in this 60 range, the 63 to 66 pick, that's the spot for them. That's where they can really make hay. Let's see what they could do there. Let's see what they could really do there. This is only one round, right? All right, cool. Let's go to the big board. Tight ends. All right. Tyler Warren's not going to be there for them. I don't know if Loveland will be there for them in the 60s. Will Loveland be there in the 60s? Arroyo? Arroyo or Loveland should be there in the 60s for the Chiefs to pick. Is that where you go? Do you strike there, or do you try to get that wide receiver bottom of the first round? Is Emeka going to be there at the bottom of the first round? Probably not. The kid from Stanford is intriguing because, see, when you look at Rashee Rice and Xavier Worthy, they kind of do similar things. You don't have that, let's just call it, they don't have the A.J. Brown. Now, you can't just go drafting those, but in terms of that body, that height, that combination of size, speed, and height, the Chiefs need something like that. You need a number one. I mean, if they could trade up and get McMillan, I just like the concept of it. I don't know if that would actually bear out, but I like the concept of it, right? Then if we're going to go lineman, I think this is a very lineman-heavy draft. We know they're going to take a lineman with one of those three picks. One of the first three picks is going to be a lineman. So with that, you know, they have their own pick, their own second, and then they have the Titans third. Those two, the 66th and the 63rd, to me, are going to be huge picks for whatever the Chiefs do. And then, oh, by the way, let's see what the Eagles got cooking up. Got their own picks the first three rounds. They got the Lions fourth, the Texans fifth, 2/5, 3/5. Yeah. And look, they're projected to take Arroyo. They're so 64. If he is there at 64, then that means the Chiefs have passed on him. Interesting. So let's see who gets Arroyo. So again, an embarrassment of riches if Harry Roseman is able to pair Goddard, who is good, but then be able to supplement that with some Arroyo on the back end. Again, Harry Roseman is us. And whether it's him specifically, directly, or his scouting department, one of those two are like us. In Madden, we're taking Jalen Carter. In Madden, we're taking Jordan Davis. We're taking Nakobe Dean. We're taking all these dudes because they're named dudes and they're from big programs and they've done high quality work at prestigious programs. Only in the NFL sometimes does it work against you when you play for a top tier program. There have literally been franchises that, I'll just say it, the Bears have been one of those franchises where they would stray away from certain conferences. And I'll say it, they would stray away from the SEC a little bit. They're more of Midwest, Big 10, Big 12 football, more so Big 10. Heavy on the Big 10, not so much the SEC. How's that working out for you? The one thing I'll give Ryan Poles is this: at least he's not afraid to draft people from the SEC. Now, is he drafting the right ones? That's a story for another day. Because let's take a look at the Chiefs. Chiefs draft history, right? Where's the help for Patrick Mahomes? Xavier Worthy, cool. So they went O-line in the second round last year. They went tight end. Jared Wiley, is he going to be the replacement? I didn't see nothing that made me thought he could be. So I don't think that's going to be a thing. Prior to that, Rashee Rice. Good. He's not a number one. More offensive lineman. This was a really bad year, the 2022 year, because they really thought Sky Moore was going to be something. Why they thought that, I have no idea. But this is a year here where they went all defense damn near to tool back up. And a lot of these players are still on the roster. I mean, it's only 2022, but in terms of is there a star or any of these, McDuffie is a hit, but we also saw McDuffie get exposed yesterday because he went up against somebody that was better than him at what he does in A.J. Brown. And then they got the biggest hit of all with Pacheco here in the 7th round. This was not expected, right? Nick Bolton had a rough day yesterday. It seemed as though they were kind of hunting Nick Bolton. Nick Bolton cost them multiple times with some silly penalties. No, what great. Again, is he a replacement for Kelsey? No, he's not. So since 2021, they've drafted multiple tight ends, and they have not hit on either one. Edwards-Helaire was a big swing and a miss. L'Jarius Sneed was a hit, and they used that to flip because they then had McDuffie. Mecole Hardman, that was a miss. So again, if we just start going down the thing of what does help look like, it's not a lot of good players that have been taken. You took Edwards-Helaire, it didn't work out. You got a miracle in Pacheco. You swung and missed on Sky Moore in the 2nd round. They've done way better defensively in drafting than they have offensively. And that's sometimes it's a trend you'll see with organizations where this organization is really good at drafting defense, but they're piss poor at drafting offense, or vice versa. And off this recent history with the Chiefs, I'm starting to feel like they're way better drafting defensively and seemingly more so in the secondary. If I had to line it up, I mean, you got McDuffie, Bolton, Sneed. Sneed in the 4th round is crazy. I forgot he was drafted that low. So 3 linchpins you were able to build your defense around to go along with, Chris Jones. So I think the Chiefs need to do a roster overhaul. I know you can get fooled into, we were literally just in the Super Bowl yesterday. We were, the Eagles came out and hit us in the mouth and we didn't respond. You can do whatever platitudes you want, but the fact of the matter is that you got beat with the easiest stuff in football. You got beat at the point of attack. You got beat where the math was in your favor and you still couldn't do anything with it. You had 6 people to protect Patrick Mahomes on this play, and you still almost got this man sacked. You had 6 people in here to protect the quarterback, and you still gave it up. You still gave it up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 people staying in to block 1, 2, 3, 4, and you still damn near gave it up. Insane. Absolutely, positively insane. All right. K-Dot. So, streams of Kendrick Lamar's Not Like Us jumped 430% on Spotify after his Super Bowl halftime show. The track has surpassed 1 billion streams on Spotify. 1 billion. How many of those streams came from Australia last night? The Canadian was hiding out in Australia, ran to the other side of the world to try to avoid the obvious, to avoid the fact that K. Dot Kung Fu Kenny, the boogeyman, was going to air him out in front of the world. 120 million viewers. 120 million viewers saw this man said, "Hey Drake, I hear you like him young," and say it with the most polite, vicious. It's polite and vicious at the same time. The smile on K. Dot's face. See, you really thought I wasn't going to say this? You really thought I was going to perform this? You let podcasters and, you know, content creators gas y'all into thinking I wasn't going to perform the song that swept the. I just got 5 Grammys. I just got 5 Grammys. You think I wasn't going to sing this song? You think I was going to perform this song? The K. Dot performance, the imagery, the symmetry of the performance with the symmetry of the choreography, the messaging, it was top tier. Now, I've seen people jump out the window. This is the best of the Rock Nation Super Bowls. I'm not going that far. But I think in terms of, for me, and I'm a West Coast person, in terms of I got exposed to hip hop via Death Row in the West Coast music of that time, of that era. That was such a West Coast performance. It just had the flavor. It had the bop. It was very cultural. It was soaked in culture. It was bathed in culture. It was blacker than what Beyonce did. And that's saying something. It was blacker than the LA Super Bowl with a 64 with hydraulics bouncing on the stage. It was blacker than that. And it was blacker without forcing it, like having a 6'4" lowrider bouncing with hydraulics. It was blacker than, you know, what Beyonce was able to pull off in the messaging with that, in the songs that she chose to do, and the songs she chose not to do. With what K. Dot did, the story of America, the viewpoint of a black artist being viewed on the world's biggest stage, but for certainly country's biggest stage, but more so the world's biggest stage, and how a black artist has to navigate what is accepted, and knowing having that duality of being able to go across different parts of your catalog. Yes, I'm gonna come out the gate GNXing you to death. That's my new shit. That's what's out. That's what I'm trying to run these numbers up. That's what I'm about to go on tour. Now a world tour. They just added a European leg to that tour. Now you're gonna get this album. And then Uncle Sam comes out there and is like, "Hey, nah, man, you got to give the people what they want. You gotta give them the hits. Fine, I'll give you DNA. I'll give you Humble. I have that duality, but now I also have that gumption of, but I want to be me. I want to give you the real shit. Yes, I can give you the hits. The hits is easy. I'm Kendrick Lamar. I got a bunch of them, but I've also already done the Super Bowl before. I've done All Right. So I can't run it back with All Right again. So I got to give you something else. Now, Uncle Sam comes out. You're doing great. Keep it going. Okay, bet. Slow it down now, because I know they want Not Like Us. But we also might get sued, so let me pull back. Let me slow it down. Hit them with that Luther. You can bring SZA out. You do the Black Panther joint. King's Dead. You do all of that. You get all of that popping. Now you slide over. Like, all right, is it now time? Can we now do it? Mans did Peekaboo. On the Super Bowl stage, he did Peekaboo. He did Euphoria. Massive performance. There's all types of deep dives going into the symmetry and the messaging and all of that. What Kung Fu Kenny was able to do. I know that Canadian is hiding out in Australia. They had footage of him at a day party, and fucking K. Dot was playing in the background. And it's just like, dog, no matter where you go, you can't run far enough. You better hope Elon gets that Mars rocket going. Maybe it ain't bumping in Mars. That's the only place that shit might not be playing. That's the only place you might be able to escape, not like us, is on Mars. You thought you could run to Australia and not hear Not Like Us? You thought you could run to Australia and not hear K Dot? This is 1 billion streams. You think that's all in the US? Bruh, that Canadian has no idea how many bad moves he's done in this battle. He has absolutely, positively no idea. Masterful performance. I already got it saved to my hard drive, along with the pop out. The pop out was another moment in time. That K Dot is giving you moments. The control verse was a moment. The Like That verse was a moment. Euphoria was a moment. Not Like Us was a moment. The pop out was a moment. The Grammys, Canadian Tuxedo, that was a moment. Respect the Culture. This is a cultural masterpiece. And I know Drake means a lot to a lot of folk. Drake has birthed a lot of folks in terms of their style, in terms of their mindset, in terms of how they move when it comes to the opposite sex. Drake has birthed a lot of folk. But a lot of that does not equate to culture. Culturally, K Dot has been embodied in blackness from day one. And therein lies the point. The K Dot we got on that stage in NOLA, and how dare y'all think y'all wanted Lil Wayne? Lil Wayne? You wanted to hear Lollipop? Y'all would have preferred Lollipop as opposed to what we got last night? Serena Crip walked. Do you understand the significance of Serena Crip walking? Yes, we know the connection of her and Drake, but that harkens back to I still go down as saying it is the greatest black sports moment in history, where Serena Williams Crip walked at center court at Wimbledon. As much as everyone is like when I saw Serena last night, it immediately took me back to that. Yes, I know the history of Serena and Drake. I'm fully aware. That to me was a secondary thing. The thing about it for me was this woman now on 2 occasions on some of the world's most prestigious stages has Crip walked. She Crip walked in London at Wimbledon. And then she Crip walked on stage at the Super Bowl. Again, you talk about culture. That's what this is. There's nothing that the Canadian can do that can embody culturally anything of what K Dot has done. The only thing we know about Drake culturally is that photo that came out during the beef with Pusha T. That we know loud and clear of Drake culturally. But when it comes to K Dot getting Serena to come out and Crip walk on yet another stage, to say that you've Crip walked in London at Wimbledon and on stage at the Super Bowl, how is she not the GOAT? Your favorite could never. LeBron, Jordan, Kobe, Vic, AI, could never. Could never. That woman has Crip walked at 2 of the most prestigious places in the world. That's culture. Your GOAT could never. Whoever your GOAT is, Ronaldo, Messi, wherever sport you want to go, Tiger, Nicholson, wherever you want to go, Nicholas, not Mickelson, Nicholas, Tiger, wherever you want to go, your GOAT could never crip walking at Wimbledon and the Super Bowl. Thank you, Kendrick. And thank you, Drake, for foolishly thinking that that man wasn't going to say anything after you said that he beat his wife. Thank you for being that dumb. Thank you for posting the red button. Thank you for saying drop, drop, drop. Thank you for saying, why are you in New York? Thank you for saying he opened his mouth, give him a Grammy right now. Thank you for all of that. Because without all of that, we wouldn't have gotten all of this. We wouldn't have gotten Serena crip walking at the Super Bowl if you weren't so arrogant. Serena took that shot about you calling her husband a groupie. She took that and stayed low and kept quiet. But then you barked up the wrong tree and that tree fell on you. And now Serena gets to crip walk on your grave just before Game Over is displayed in the background. Masterful performance from K. Dot. Of the Roc Nation Super Bowls, this is definitely top three. Definitely top three. This definitely beats Rihanna to me. And I mean, definitely beats J-Lo and Shakira. It's arguably, to me, it's better than the LA West Coast one. And then we had to have the conversation about Usher and Beyonce. We have to have that conversation. The fact that K. Dot, with very little help, was able to put on a performance and tell a story and give you visual imaging that is rival to what Beyonce did. When, let's be real, a rapper being able to be in the same conversation when it comes to a live show with Beyonce, that's a feat in itself. So the fact that, and it took all that imagery, it took Sam Jackson, it took Serena, it took the arc of the dichotomy of being a black artist in America. It took all of that just to be in the conversation with Beyonce. Who's going to be next year? I think Tyler, the Creator, is in that conversation for next year. Because the Jay-Z Roc Nation thing hasn't gone anywhere. It's not going anywhere. So who gets it next year? I'm going Tyler, the Creator. I don't know if Chris Brown has rehabbed his image enough to be able to get that stage, to be able to get that moment, especially with Hove being involved with Roc Nation. But who gets it next year? Because this is going to be tough to top. What K. Dot got off is going to be extremely difficult to top. All right. Those who pulled up, this was the story of the Super Bowl. The Eagles blitzed Patrick Mahomes on 0 of his 42 dropbacks. Mahomes is the 6th QB in Super Bowl history to not be blitzed a single time. All 6 of those QBs have lost. And we have the list here. Here is the other 5. Kurt Warner in 01, Rich Gannon in 02, McNabb in 04. A lot of this is Patriots stuff. Patriots in Tampa 2 stuff. Peyton Manning, this is Seahawks cover 3. Cam Newton, that was Patriots. And now Patrick Mahomes. So the story was the fact that the Eagles 4 was better than the Chiefs 5 and 6 and even sometimes 7. They destroyed the math. We'll go for a couple more minutes here. I think we're going to wrap it up. I gave you all that I got on the Super Bowl. Feel free to chime in the chat. What was the biggest factor? If it wasn't the trenches, or if we all can agree trenches played a huge factor, what was the second most important thing? What was the second biggest reason why the Eagles dismantled the Kansas City Chiefs yesterday? What was it? Let me know in the chat. Oh, sorry, I said 120 million views for K. Dot. 126. Sorry, 126 million views. Record high streaming viewership via Tubi. 135.7 million viewers, peak audience from 8 to 8:15 in the second quarter. So that was leading up to halftime. Kung Fu Kenny. All right, I think we're going to wrap it up. I appreciate those that were able to pull up. I am the Sam D. What I do here on this channel is talk sports. I give you my experience from almost 20 years in sports media, along with my lifelong knowledge of just following sports and scouting sports and doing the research, rewatching film from being a teenager to a grown-ass man. So I take that wealth of knowledge, being able to be a writer, photographer, producer, director, and now a manager in sports media, and I use that information to try to help you all understand what this sports thing, what this sports media landscape thing, what technology plays into the sports arena, and how everything works, especially when it comes to business and the money in sports. So I take that knowledge, I try to pay it forward and pass it down to y'all. Always down for a open conversation, always down for discourse. So if you want to get into more of that type of topics, if you like that type of content, go ahead and hit subscribe. Go ahead, hit the like button. Let the algorithm know that you're digging this content and that they should share this type of content with others that are like-minded like yourself. So I go by the name of the Sam D. I will be dropping videos later on this week about other things going on in and around the world of sports and sports media. So with that being said, I bid y'all a good night. Appreciate y'all for pulling up. Let me get my little music here. Let me see if we get the bed back. Trash narrative. Should be able to. Get the bed back. All right, y'all. Appreciate you. Thank you for pulling up. Hit that like button, sub if you haven't already. I'll catch you.